Hello again. I want to comment on something that happened last night on the Rachel Maddow show, and I'm going to give you a brief excerpt of what she said on that show that I find not only troubling, but corresponds directly with what I've been saying for the last couple of months. So this is a direct quote. "We live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country. We have a massive, anonymous, unbadged, literally masked, totally unaccountable internal police force that apparently has infinite funding, but no identifiable leadership, and they act in ways designed to instill maximum fear and use maximum force." I have forewarned in previous videos, in my Daily Kos commentaries, and on my Facebook page in the last couple of months, that we are in the midst of a rolling coup, and we must strike back now. Now, we've had some mass demonstrations, and in a previous video, I questioned the last two national demonstrations, the Good Trouble Lives On and the Rage Against the Regime. Both of those demonstrations, I said, were not well focused, and I was uncomfortable with the idea of rage because, for one thing, I think it conjures up imaginations in people's minds, visualizations in people's minds of violence, which I am totally opposed to. In my criticisms of those previous two demonstrations, people struck back by saying that the demonstrations, among other things, were losing their momentum and becoming dull and boring. And the fact that fewer and fewer people were showing up to these previous demonstrations was evidence of that. And I received suggestions or feedback from a number of individuals about my video, which suggested that we should stop doing demonstrations until maybe 3 months before the 2026 election. The response to that, of course, I think is pretty obvious after I read the Rachel Maddow comment. We're in the middle of militarization of America. We're in the middle of a police state. And all we would do by stopping our demonstrations now is allow them to consolidate their power. So how are we supposed to respond to what is occurring in our country in terms of authoritarianism and the establishment of a police state, as I have articulated? I want to give you just a little bit of historical context. In 1963, of course, there was the March on Washington, and there were 250,000 people roughly that showed up to that march, and it was thought to be a wild success. But did it have an immediate impact in terms of passing civil rights legislation, which was really the focus of that particular March on Washington? No, it took time. In fact, it took a year for the first civil rights law to be passed in Congress. And the second one, which had to do with voting rights, wasn't passed until 1965, 2 years later. So the point I'm making here is that when you have mass demonstrations, even when you have millions of people across the nation that are protesting, this isn't something that's all of a sudden going to bring the Trump administration to its knees. It's not going to cause authoritarianism to suddenly crumble. And one demonstration is not a one and done process. So it's not like, well, we had a huge demonstration. The No Kings demonstration, for instance, was very, very successful. By most estimates, there's probably about 5 million protesters across the nation showed up for that. So it was a wonderful demonstration, but it didn't have an immediate result. And the reason for that is that this is a process of mobilization of a movement. And you don't create a movement by one nationwide demonstration, even if you get millions of people to show up. It's a process, and it takes time. So the mobilization that I'm talking about is towards the 2026 election. And the goal is to throw out the Republican Party en masse. Because the Republican Party is the underpinnings of this authoritarian state that's being created. They are, in fact, capitulating to Trump. They are enabling his worst instincts and his worst actions. They are not fighting back, and the Democrats are in the minority, and so they are very limited in terms of what they can do. So it's up to us as citizens to mobilize in mass numbers, but not just towards a single demonstration. There's all kinds of other things that we can do. I do encourage the next mass demonstration, however, to be on the theme of no police state. I think that really will mobilize America. And I think our goal should be, instead of 5 million people, I think our goal should be to try to get 10 million people. And I suggest somewhere around October 1st, which happens to be my birthday, I suggest that that would be the date. It would give us enough time to really publicize it, to organize it, and to really have a meaningful outpouring of participation. But in addition to that, there's all kinds of other things that we can do to coordinate and consolidate at the same time. And some of these things have already been done, and we should continue to do them. Signs on freeway over ramps are really effective, and we should continue to do that, and do that in much greater numbers. Postcards being sent to members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, by the tens of thousands, even millions. That's good. Voter registration drives, absolutely critical. Town hall meetings. I've been pushing this for several months now. We are on recess in Congress. 260 Democrats in Congress should be holding town hall meetings during this 5-week recess that we're experiencing right now. During that 5-week period, each member of Congress who's a Democrat, all 260 of them, should be holding not one single town hall meeting, but at least a half a dozen town hall meetings. And if they would do that, you'd have something on the order of 1,500 different town halls. That would make the media be alert. They would actually pay attention to that because it'd be incredibly visible. And then, of course, you need to participate by showing up at those town hall meetings and registering your anger about what's happening in this country and what has been passed so far in terms of like tax cuts for the rich by the Republican Congress. One of the last things that I think has been missing from this, and that is protests on college campuses. During the Vietnam War, which I grew up with, protests on college campuses was an integral part of the mobilization against that war. And you notice historically that that mobilization didn't suddenly end the war overnight. It took a long time. But this is the process I'm talking about. College students need to, by the tens of thousands, start protesting, especially protesting where the presidents of these colleges and their board of trustees are capitulating to the Trump administration because of money. Trump threatens to take away federal funding from them, and they capitulate to his demands. College students should rise up by the thousands, the tens of thousands, at each one of their campuses and say, no way, we're not going to do that. I don't pretend to have all of the solutions and all of the strategies on how to mobilize this campaign, but I give you dozens of them in my book, Willful Ignorance and Stupid Political Decisions. But I don't think I have all the answers, and I encourage you to give me feedback on this channel. And if you have additional ideas on how to increase the mobilization and its effectiveness, I encourage you to go to my channel and subscribe. I'm going to be doing additional videos, and I encourage your participation. Thank you.